So the next part of our Python tutorial is about while loops, and while loops are the other kind of loop in Python that we use, and it's nearly the same as for loop with a little bit of difference. So to get started, I'm going to create a new file and call it while.py, and in here we're going to for the while loop we need to also consider a variable. So for example, here I can declare a new variable and make it start from 0. So first of all, I declare it to be 0 so that my loop here starts from 0 and it starts incrementing until it gets to a certain number, and then it breaks out of the loop. So in the while loop we have a condition that comes after the while, and it says that until this condition holds, stay inside the loop, and once it gets contradicted, then you can break outside of the loop. So while means as long as a condition holds, something is going to be looped over and over again. So it's more of a conditional for than unconditional. So here, for example, while I is less than, for example, 10, print I, and if I, so here we don't have any if because it's conditional, and when I gets more than 10, it's going to get out of the while loop. So here, let's run the code. So inside the terminal, Python 3 while.py, and here we're just going on, and we forgot to increment I. So I'm going to press Ctrl+C here in order to stop it, because infinitely this is going to print I, and because I is not incrementing, it is continuing to print 0, 0, 0, 0, and so on. So inside every while loop we need to also increment the number that we are declaring there. So once it increments, it's going to reach a number which is 10, and this condition is going to take us out of the loop, which is going to be repeating for a certain number of times, not infinitely. And there are times that these while loops start repeating and repeating over and over again, and in those moments when we want to have another operation to be handled, we use threads in Python, which I'm going to explain later in the advanced section of Python tutorials. But for now, remember that while loops are not going to be infinitely operating. So here I'm going to save the code and rerun it. As you can see, we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, and when we get to 10, the while loop ends and we get outside or break outside of the loop. So as you can remember, in the previous tutorials we had true instead of this condition here, and we also had a break. So here we didn't use true and we don't have the break, and the reason is we have another condition. However, if we want to add another rule, for example, if I equals, for example, 7, we can break outside of the loop. So let's do this another time. This time, as you can see, we get up to 6, number 6, so 7 times is going to be printed out, and we get outside the while loop, and we break outside of this while here, but we don't have this condition so we don't break outside of this while loop because of the contradiction of this condition, but mainly because of this if here and break. So here we can also have else, just the same as for and just the same as if. So else here is going to print whether the loop has been completed or not. So the loop has got completed. So let's save this and again print this. As you can see, because the loop hasn't ended and it has broken out of the loop when it got to 7, then we don't have this statement. But if I comment this if here and rerun the code, as you can see, it says that the loop has got completed. So else can also be very much useful for our case when we are using this kind of loop here. But also consider that, for example, we increment I by 2, and so we have 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, and then the loop gets finished. And because of that, we don't get into this if here and we do not break outside the loop, and as a result this loop is going to get completed. So let me save the code and run it. As you can see, we have 5 numbers printed out, but still we have the loop got completed. Also, another thing about this kind of while loops is that we can also have continue. So for example, we can write continue here and we can increment this by 1 once more and save the code. If I run it, as you can see, we have printed 7. So let me print I or increment I here, Control X, and place it right here, so that it won't print I if it gets in there. So let me just increment it by 1, Control X here, and print I. So if we put print I here, it won't print 7. So let's skip that, and it won't print I, and it will also finish this while loop here, and also we can have this else statement also printed out as the loop has got completed. So let's save the code and rerun it. As you can see, we don't have 7 printed out. After 6 we have 8, and we also have this loop got completed. But here, if we had break, we wouldn't have this else run. And okay, here as you can see, we don't have the loop has got completed a statement. Okay, anyway, that's it for while loops. Let me also write another example with while true. So here, instead of a kind of another condition, we only have true, and we can break outside of the loop anytime we want. So the equivalent of this kind of while loop, except the fact that we're going to also comment this break here, we can write while true, and then what we're going to do is to write the very same thing about I. We're going to increment I by I plus equal 1, and then we're going to check whether I is more than 10. So if I is greater than 10, we're going to break outside of the loop. Also, we're going to print out the I itself, print I. And then we're going to run the code. Here, as you can see, we have this part, and I, because I here is 10, we want to get into the loop, or we will get outside the loop just the same time that we get in, because I equals 10. So again, I'm going to declare I as 0, and we run the code. Here, as you can see, we have 2 times printing 1 to 10, and here this while loop is the same as the other one. I can also add the else statement here and write print, and then can paste in the very same sentence we had here. So here we don't enter into the else statement, and the reason is we have while true, so we don't know if the loop has got completed or not. There is no limit for it, and only this if a statement is going to determine how long it's going to go. And because it gets false at some time, and break is going to be activated, not true, and not the statement here, we never have else. So because every once at a time it gets false with this break statement, and this break gets activated, we will never see this else get activated. But here, because we have this condition after while, then we will have else activated as well, because if we do not break outside of the loop, and we do not have any if getting activated with a break, and then this while condition will get activated at a time, and we'll get outside the loop with this condition being contradicted, and as a result we will have this else activated. But here we will have no such condition, because we only have true here. So that's the only difference, but generally these are without except this else here, these two are equivalent of each other, so we can write them interchangeably.